Some games are like potato chips. Once you start playing, you can't put them down. Hi folks, it's Mac, and today on this video, 15 underrated or maybe relatively unknown games that are more addictive than most big budget games. And stick around to the end because I'm sure you'll find one game here that you'll definitely play tomorrow. Starting with number 15, we have Graveyard Keeper. This is a game that lives up to its name and tagline superbly. What happens when you take a Stardew Valley type gameplay and instead of working a peaceful little farm, you have to deal in human cadavers? Well, you get a whole lot of pitch black humor and, more importantly for this list, an extremely addictive game. Like Stardew Valley, it's a game where you're only ever limited by the amount of energy you have in a day. Everything costs energy, so if you're not careful, you can pass out randomly. In Stardew Valley, you normally pass out at the end of a hard day's work on the farm. In Graveyard Keeper, you might pass out carrying the upper half of a corpse to your embalming station, but otherwise, the games are very similar structurally. They look similar, have similar mechanics, and similar controls. They're virtually identical, except, one is a cute, wholesome farming game, and the other involves tending to a graveyard and dissecting corpses for profit. It's extremely similar, but the few differences give it a very different feel. For one thing, instead of starting out in a town where you're unwelcome and gradually worm your way in Graveyard Keeper, you start as a member of the community. You're respected from the start. So the vibe couldn't be more different, really. I mean, in one, you have to gain the villagers' respect. In this one, bitterness and hatred bubble beneath polite facades. It's just their blessed relief from petty squabbles, murder, infernal machinations in the church, etc. It's a case of if you like one, you'll like the other. Graveyard Keeper doesn't reach the absolutely ridiculous heights of morphine-laced addiction that Stardew did, but it gets pretty damn close and arguably has more content to explore with a pile of meaty DLC that makes the game even bigger. It definitely has a longer shelf life of fun. At number 14, we have Emberward. It's kind of straightforward this. If you like a roguelike and you like tower defense, then you're probably gonna love Emberward. It's one of these games that is 100% about the core gameplay. There's no story to speak of, the visuals are perfectly serviceable, but not much else. Emberward is all about these huge boss battles where you set up defenses to take them down. The gimmick to this is how the mazes are structured. Instead of having meager passive aid for where enemies go, you have to build your own with tetraminos. It's a pretty radical change up because it takes an entire element of strategy and adds it to these kind of games. Not only do you have to decide where to build towers, you have to build out around that to actually make them effective. So the way it works in this one is each map has an entrance and an exit. You have to build from the entrance to the exit using the shapes you're given on the map. You have a lot of freedom in how you can build these mazes so the boss can get through it, but you have just as many options for where to build within that. Of course, you're also going to have other bonuses and upgrades to deal with as you progress. How big and powerful the towers are corresponds directly with how big and elaborate the bosses get. It starts out with just a couple pretty easy ones and ends with these overwhelming nightmare creatures outfitted with a ridiculous arsenal of weapons. And they're just throwing a continuous stream of attacks if they are able to reach your tower standing at your carefully constructed maze. Essentially though, you're grinding for better stuff so you can take on bigger bosses, become more powerful, take on bigger bosses, lather, rinse, repeat, yada yada. But it has an addictive flow to it where you start around, you build up your defenses, you take on a pretty easy first boss, and then you upgrade as you go. This is a real banger for those who like tower defense games, so if you do, check out Emberward. Moving on to number 13, let's talk about Orcs Must Die 3. While we're on the subject of tower defense games, it's gotta be one of the goofiest and frankly one of the most fun ones out there. The Orcs Must Die games may not be widely known, but they have their fan base. They're these action-oriented hybrid third-person shooter tower defense games where you place traps in areas to impede and kill enemies making their way towards the end. You're also running around mixing it up with the enemies up close. There is absolutely a flow state these games put you in, and they're extremely addictive once you get your head around them. Orcs Must Die 3 is the cream of the crop. It looks great, it controls beautifully, and it's just I got finely tuned entry in the series. Whether you play solo or with friends, you're in for a good time with this. Bonus points for just the cartoonish violence of it all. There's nothing better than seeing throngs of dumb orcs get slaughtered by a variety of painful looking contraptions. It's seriously satisfying to watch these guys get mutilated, not on a gameplay level, but it's also darkly funny on a personal level. The moment-to-moment gameplay is fast-paced and relentless. You have to stay at the top of your game during every invasion or you'll be overwhelmed. The difficulty spikes can be slightly frustrating, but that's often true for games like this. This game in particular, the difficulty can ramp up fast. Isn't all about the campaign though. There are extra modes like Endless and Scramble, which increases the chaos exponentially. They mix up the basic gameplay loop with randomized challenges and enemy types that keeps things interesting. The only caveat I gotta give to this one is the meta progression system can be a little grindy. Unlocking certain upgrades or traps requires a lot of repetition. It's not always exhilarating, some of the trap combinations are just irresistible. Like the spring trap that launches enemies into a pit of spikes, or the acid spewing ballista. You're gonna be tempted to use stuff like this everywhere you can. The sheer creativity of these people making machines that mash bones is incredible. You got to admire that bloodthirsty fervor. If you love tower defense, you need to at least try these games because the feedback makes this game more fun and addictive. Next on the list, at number 12, we have HoloCure, Save the Fans. Vampire Survivors is the admittedly obvious big hit in this apparently undying subgenre of auto battle survivor game, and if you played it and want something similar but also just a little bit different, then HoloCure is the game for you. It's Vampire Survivors, sort of, but with a free-to-play gacha game attached to it, but not in a bad way because you never have to spend money on it because it's entirely free. So, let me explain. HoloCure is a fan-made roguelite game inspired by Vampire Survivors, featuring elements that lightly parody gacha and slot machine mechanics. The characters you play as are virtual YouTube personalities affiliated with HoloLive, known as VTubers. To unlock new characters, you earn in-game currency through gameplay, which can be used to spin a gacha system for a random character. You can also spend currency to unlock character variations and passives or engage in a slot machine minigame in casino mode to earn rewards. There are no microtransactions in the game. Everything in the game can be unlocked organically just by playing, which is actually something that makes it more addictive. Like, you're just unlocking stuff constantly. So, anyway, the core gameplay involves defending VTuber talents from waves of attacking fans. With a variety of stages, 47 unique characters, and their distinct weapons and modifiers, the game offers near infinite replayability. The challenge escalates as you progress, keeping every session rewarding. HoloCure is a heartfelt tribute to both HoloLive VTubers and the mechanics of gacha games, making it a must-try whether you're a fan of VTubers or just looking for a fresh take on the genre. Completely free, it's remarkable for its depth and generosity. Coming in at number 11, Endless Legend is a Civilization-style strategy game infused with a vibrant world of magic and monsters. Released in 2014, this addictive strategy gem served as a stepping stone for Amplitude Studios' rise to prominence, paving the way for titles like Endless Dungeon and Humankind. Arguably, Endless Legend can easily par with both of those games in terms of quality and depth. This is a 4X game, which stands for Explore, Expand, Exploit, and Exterminate. It's a subgenre of strategy games where it's all about the math and the satisfaction of seeing your civilization, which, unlike typical sci-fi or historical settings, it features unique, fantastical factions like insectoid creatures, stone golems, and ghostly nations. Each race feels wonderfully weird, with distinctive mechanics that make every playthrough visually and strategically captivating. It's a pretty rad-looking game, and it has a really strong soundtrack, while looking attuned to the endless saga of Civilization clones we're gonna be getting until far into the future. The twist here is the game incorporates elements from Paradox games, which in depths to say it has more of cultural narrative and causatory influence on reflected each civilization's unique characteristics and roles, but I don't know, it's like an onion in gameplay form. Every time you peel back a layer, you start getting comfortable with the world, the game throws you another. And it's a 4X game, so the layers are generated every time you play too, a thing that's engineered to be very addictive. Coming up next, we have a Disgaea game here. It's Disgaea 5 Alliance of Vengeance. Well, actually, it's now called Disgaea 5 Complete, which is essentially an all-in-one version of Disgaea 5, Alliance of Vengeance, including all previously released DLC. Anyway, these games are kind of intimidating at first, but once you get your head around them, it becomes hard to put down. Imagine the most players, having their world rocked by how far these games manage to push their specific brand of tactical JRPG insanity. Disgaea 5 didn't make many changes to the established formula, but just playing it was incredible because it added so many quality of life changes that it was impossible to play one of the older games and go back to it. And with the release of Disgaea 6, which personally I don't like, Disgaea 5 remains the high watermark of the series for me. What's crazy about these games is they're as addictive or as tedious as you decide to make them. The real meat of the experience is in endless grinding and optimization toward getting ridiculous damage numbers. It's really about strategizing. It's more like figuring out the best way to break the game. This game has all kinds of systems: stat boosts, abilities, status effects, the ability to fight against a game's own systems to exploit the hell out of everything, which is where kind of the novelty comes in. It's like, look how much damage I can do. Now, grinding is actually a good time in these games, but you have to be pretty open-minded to everything these games are selling. If you're not into absurdist sketches, sit-down comedy, and over-top humor, you probably bounce off immediately. Or maybe you really don't like grinding, then the game probably won't appeal to you. But if you're into these kind of overwhelming strategy games that can get extremely silly, you want to get sulking hours upon hours into a game, this is the pick. Maybe not a game for everyone, because it's intimidating and kind of one-note, but it's really fun. At number 9, we have a recent one. It's Vampire Hunters. Take Vampire Survivors and make it first person, and you get this. This could have been an awkward, ugly mess, but they actually pulled it off. And what's more, in terms of gameplay, it's actually deeper than Vampire Survivors, incorporating the randomized power-ups of the Auto Battle Survivors games and mix them with the fast-paced combat of old FPS games. I don't know exactly how to put it. I guess it's like if Doom and Vampire Survivors had a baby. That seems about the simplest way. But Vampire Hunters has a unique charm of its own and draws in aspects of its inspiration in a different way. Progression and upgrades and how you manage your weapons is the big change here. At first, when you're playing, you might not even notice that you're holding down more than one weapon. But as you progress and get more and more stuff, eventually this absolutely absurd collection of guns and melee weapons are all firing at the same time from this awkward jumble of hands and arms. The visual chaos adds lots to the challenge. It can make certain weapons kind of useless because their projectiles are getting covered up by better stuff. So there's some tactical choices you have to make when you're progressing. On top of all that, their layer has environmental effects, artifacts, other modifiers, things like that, and they force you to adapt your strategy and keep things from getting stale. There's just something incredibly satisfying about quickly circling a group of enemies and watching their explosions echo around the map. There's a different sensation to what you get from Vampire Survivors, but it's also oddly calming and really satisfying. If you're into the roguelike FPS hybrid games, this is one of the better ones out. It's worth a look. It's got a unique and strange flavor to it. And yeah, this game has been officially launched last year after its 2023 early access phase.
Stop! A black cat crossed before us. It's a bad omen. Do not take you for the superstitious type, Doctor.
Now, next at number 8, we have Sherlock Holmes: The Awakened. Frogware's been kind of quietly putting out banger after banger, but it hasn't garnered the attention it really deserves. They've been consistently doing good work, starting in way back in 2012 with a crossover in their Modern Home series, which basically got the complete wrong idea about what people liked about the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes movies. I still kind of enjoyed the game. It did make me worry about the quality of these guys' output. Luckily, they've improved a hell of a lot as they've gone on, with 2016's Devil's Daughter being a particular high point for the series. Recently though, Sherlock Holmes: The Awakened is the standout. It's a tale of young Sherlock and Watson facing off against supernatural threats. It's every bit as crazy as you'd think it'd be. I mean, it's not a game you play because you want a grounded take on Sherlock Holmes. Some of the dialogue and scenarios are just bonkers in a great, entertaining, and addictive way, and overall the game looks great, controls well, and has solid voice acting. It quickly draws you into the world. What makes it addictive is the seamless blend of exploration and deduction. The deduction part is handled great, with clues and evidence that are instinctively that you sort of put together in Sherlock Holmes' mystical mind palace, but it's also engaging to slowly gather clues. You put together a crime scene using a whole lot of investigation tricks. just building up your stores until you have more than enough evidence to make a breakthrough extremely satisfying and also quite addictive. And the game almost never hands that stuff to you. Figuring everything out is 100% on you. You gotta pay attention. That's essentially what makes it fun. Moving on to number 7, we have Roots of Pacha. Yeah, we got another Stardew Valley-like here. It's pretty much the same thing, but it's set in the Stone Age and is hands down the best of its kind in a sea of inferior imitations. Pretenders and half-hearted attempts to recapture something special that made Stardew Valley such a huge hit. This one succeeds where others fail because unlike every other game in the genre, it does something different. The problem of a lot of these games is they just imitate the basic gameplay loop without understanding what makes it good, which gives us kind of weak, poorly balanced imitations that borrow but never build. But Roots of Pacha is a builder. It takes the base loop of Stardew Valley, adds its own unique systems, and that actually make it feel distinct and better. And in some ways, I'm gonna commit blasphemy here and say Roots of Pacha is actually easier to get into than Stardew Valley. It doesn't have a cushy tutorial of a AAA game or anything, but the way the game's goals are structured just makes it more immediately apparent what you're supposed to do. It's not aimless, it directs the player and keeps them busy. There is of course standard mining, fishing, farming, self-maintenance, collecting and decomposing new materials, etc. But the main focus of the game is more on supporting your clan than trying to fill the fat of your wallet with cash, which is basically what the motivation in Stardew is. Impressing them is the biggest goal, along with a bunch of other bonuses. Like that motivation system, there's a lot that make it a little more fun in some ways. At number 6, we have Deep Rock Galactic Survivor. Maybe another Vampire Survivors like, this time with Deep Rock Galactic. As soulless as that kind of sounds, this game is fantastic. It takes the core loop of Deep Rock Galactic with the mining underground with a variety of weapons and combines that endless run and gun with the auto battle survivors. To put it simply, this is a game where you mine rocks while shooting guns. That's it. I mean, it's fun though. There's explosive possibilities of the full game, the rock, paper, scissors balance of the classes, the interesting weapons, etc. But it's all pared down to the absolute basics. Gun, enemy, explosions, that's the game. That said, you're still a dwarf on an alien planet and you wander around to mine and shoot everything that moves. You're constantly moving, always searching for precious minerals, fighting all manner of toxic and deadly creatures, including some very epic boss fights. The boss fights, which are overcome at using your array of randomized weapons and upgrades, might I add. In a lot of ways, this game does capture the fun and action of the original game. And while it's easy to dismiss it as just another follow-on, it's kind of more than that because the comparison to Vampire Survivors only really gets you so far. This is a significantly different game from that. There are similarities, yes, but the inclusion of mining, optional missions, boss fights, and traveling around a cave structure rather than the endless field of mobs and the arrogant, disruptive nature of objectives is what make it significantly unique. While the premise does sound pretty simple, the total design just adds much more to the game, and it works here. It boosts the addictiveness so much. Also, unlocking new maps, miners, equipment's really satisfying. You know you're in trouble when you tell yourself this is your last round only to realize several hours later you're still playing. Yeah, it's got that effect. Now, at number 5, we have Monster Train 2, the sequel to the 2020 indie monster hit, Monster Train. Long story short, it's bigger and better than the original in every way. Its cauliflower deep strategy of Slay the Spire, the relentless action of Vampire Survivors, and the tactical placement of tower defense game. I'm telling you there's a lot going on, but it's not all on the surface. What makes it so addictive is how quickly you have to make decisions. You may never push decisions on you. You gotta be quick about it. This is a game where you can't just shut your brain off entirely. You really do have to plan and strategize. What makes the game work where so many of the others crash and burn is the extraordinary sense of design, something a lot of these games missed. The developers knew exactly how they wanted this game to work and they executed on their vision perfectly. There's the depth of strategy exactly when it's enough to be meaningful, but not enough to be overwhelming, which is probably where it would end for a lot of people. They'd be like, oh, okay, that sounds boring. And to be frank, I used to think so. However, more recently over the past few years, I have been getting into games like this. And this one is like exactly what I'm talking about. It's not overwhelming. It's enough to keep you interested, but not enough to crash your mind if you're not like into this stuff already. You can unlock new cards, abilities, modifiers through progression, and customizing decks in different ways. There's a different combination of stuff that seems essentially endless and keeps the game from getting stale. Obviously, it's entirely possible to burn out on something like this, but if you're the type of person who can get into it, you'll probably be playing it. So Monster Train 2 came out a few months ago. Again, it's pretty recent, so I think every one of you needs to see this. Moving on to number 4, we have Vampire. This, to some, underwhelming 2018 action RPG from Don't Nod of all developers is one that you either really like or you really don't. For me, this is fascinating. It's this vampire action game that sets up this moral ambiguity and lets you play in the mud. That's the whole thing here. You're a good man with insatiable craving for blood, which sets you up for a very distinct moral quandary, and it's something that feels so much more serious when you actually play it. And that's not the only avenue the game offers to behave myself in a tantalizingly non-moral way either. Whatever path you choose, the game has a mechanism to make it all look grim and beauty in it. The story here, Elements oozes and side characters deliver monologues that are not only phenomenal, but it's all influences the mood of gameplay. You play as Dr. Jonathan Reed, and he's a military surgeon and newly turned vampire struggling with his bloodthirsty nature and the consequences of his transformation. It throws you in a dark old London world full of gloomy streets and shadowy alleys and foggy night air and sun barely peeking through. It's a good mood setting. One whiff of it though, keep you coming back. You just want to see where it goes. And in the late game, things get pretty crazy, though that depends on the choices you make throughout the game. Now, the combat is also worth mentioning. While the actions are fairly basic in my opinion, they still get the job done very well. Overall, this game is sure to hook you right from its opening scene. At number 3, my friend Pedro is a relatively obscure 2019 action platformer that has caught on in certain circles as a stone-cold action classic. Like, it's a charmingly violent game. This is the game that puts John Wick to shame because the protagonist in this game can also perform some slick action. Performance in this game is what feels cool. You can split your aim, shoot in multiple directions, kick things out of the air, and use environmental weapons. In short, it's just awesome. It's this chaotic dance of destruction, and it feels great. What makes this game different from other, more mechanically impressive shooters is the momentum of it all. It's all about the flow of gameplay, where you change things in one ambitious, thrilling line that'll make you unstoppable. You'll die a lot because, well, that's inevitable, right? So you'll have to repeat segments, but whenever something works, it feels amazing. And it's beyond satisfying seeing it slowly refill your scoreboard abilities and unlock new challenges for more bloodbaths after the levels. You get motivated to do it well too because you get a score and a final tally. Shows how stylish your serial murder was, and you'll want to keep playing the game over again just to improve it with each attempt. It's a short, simple game with extremely easy systems to learn, but it's compelling because it's so replayable. I mean, you can replay any level of the game to at least get an S rank, right? This game is criminally underrated despite having really good gameplay. Maybe that's understandable since there's not a lot of story going on, but I like a man whose best friend is a banana. Coming up next, we have Death Road to Canada. This is a weird little game. This is one of those games that takes the format and mechanics of something and applies it to a totally different genre, and it works. Death Road to Canada is like the Oregon Trail for the apocalypse, but it plays somehow like a twin stick shooter. You're some kind of upstaged apocalypse stuff, and you have to travel this winding road full of stops where each character facing unique challenges, all while disguising your way through your party members, inventory management, and getting food and weaponry and all that. It's a bizarre mix that works perfectly. It's the most fun you'll have dying in a game. You have 100% certain that every run before everything inevitably goes horribly wrong and everyone gets killed by zombies, bandits, or whatever other absurd stuff the random number generator throws at you. This game is just about waiting for the next thing to go wrong while praying and hoping you'll be able to scrape by. The action part of the game has no small part to play in your survival as you explore these small, non-linear maps stuffed full of supplies to scavenge. Notice that point, no go crazy about shooting up zombies with guns and stuff. Sure, that works on a surface level, but for characters carrying in a bag full of junk, endless shooting often leads to attract tons of unwanted attention from zombies. And replacing bullets not easy, so effectively managing your resources is important, and that makes it a very, very stressful but super fun survival game. Ultimately, it sometimes feels frustrating to play, but that's part of the fun. This game is on the list because it's strange, this mashup of different gameplay mechanics that shouldn't work together, but they do, and hell, they work perfectly. And finally at number 1, Bellwright, which combines colony management, city building, and survival mechanics in a game that's both enticing and extremely addictive. Starting off as a survivor on a forest map, your goal is to build a thriving society from scratch. You have to build up everything from the ground up, like resources, equipment, all of that. I think you get the drift. It's standard stuff for these kind of survival games at first, but the city building elements eventually take over and you have to manage all these followers, fight for your settlement, and improve things. The complaints at launch were that the game has some issues with pacing and balance, but that's par for the course when it comes to early access games. They're still smoothing over the rough edges, but I can say this, the core gameplay loop is fantastic. This is one of the games that once you get going is impossible to put down. The RPG systems give it a unique flavor, and while your traditional real-time strategy game would have you viewing your village from up in the sky, this game puts you up close and personal. You're out there fighting, gathering, and building just like everyone, but it provides a sense of focus and direction that a lot of those games don't, which helps motivate you to keep going. It's a tough thing to balance, and the occasional bug or exploit can throw that off, but this game pulls off the premise way better than you might think, and that's what makes it so damn addictive.